Howdy, everybody. My name is Christina, and this is Behind the Review. So, before I get started with this week's or today's review, I originally recorded this video about 2 weeks ago before I went away on vacation. I thought I had everything all set and ready to go, but it turns out there were some issues with it. So now I am re-recording it now that I'm back from vacation. So because it's been a little over 2 weeks since I've seen this movie, bear with me. I do have my notes, but I'm basically doing a review from what I remember because my notes only tell me so much. I don't have a system for my notes yet, so yeah. Also, thank you to those of you who watched the last video, which was my very first review, and it happened to be on Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Thank you for watching. If you're still here, thank you so much for sticking with me. That last review was my first one. If it felt rushed, I apologize. I, for some reason, got it into my head that I had to do my review in 15 minutes or less. Turns out I don't have to. So, starting from this video forward, I'm going to take my time, talk about the movie, talk about things that I liked and didn't like, and of course, give my overall review. So, with that being said, let's get on to today's review. It is on 1994's Wagons East, starring John Candy and Richard Lewis. So when I originally watched this movie, I watched it, I believe it was 1 or 2 days after the 30th anniversary of John Candy's passing. And I believe it was about a week after Richard Lewis's passing. And I wanted to find a movie where I could honor these guys. And originally, I was looking for movies that starred John Candy that I hadn't seen, find something with Richard Lewis that I hadn't seen, and when I was looking, I came across this movie that stars both of them. So I thought, perfect. What better way to honor both of these comedians than this movie? So basically, this movie takes place in the 1800s, and I believe it's sometime after the gold rush. So there is a group of people that are living in this small town of prosperity, which is somewhere out west, according to the captions in the movie, that has a population of 67 people, which within the first 4 minutes ends up going down to 63 people. And so Richard Lewis's character Phil and some of his friends have had enough of living somewhere in the West. They don't know what's left for them there anymore. So that's when they decide that they want to go travel back east, back to, I believe it was St. Louis. And because they don't know how to get there, they need to find a wagon master. And they happen to come across John Candy's character, who his name is James Harlow. And Phil, who is Richard Lewis, really wants to hire Harlow to be the wagon master, but one of his buddies isn't convinced. It's because Harlow is basically a full-time drunk and doesn't trust him. But somehow they convince him to quit drinking long enough for him to take on this job to get these people back to their destination. In order for Harlow to do that, he ends up pouring out the last little bit of the whiskey that he was drinking, and he was drinking it straight out of the bottle. Like, he was chugging that thing. And my first reaction when I saw it, when he had that last little bit left and he started pouring out, I was like, no, why didn't you finish it? And it was, to me, my first reaction was like, you wasted whiskey. But after a while, I realized he was doing it to symbolize that he was going to stop drinking, that he's serious about taking on the job to help these people to where they want to go. But at the same time, I was thinking, well, if you didn't want to finish it and you wanted to show them that you were done drinking, hand it off to someone else to finish. But then also I thought, well, he was drinking straight from the bottle. I don't think anybody wants to drink out of that. So I was like, okay, I let it go. But just that initial reaction of him pouring out that last little bit, I was like, you got to the bottom of the bottle. Oh, I was upset. But I let it go. I understand that he was showing them that he was serious. And I understand that. There were a few actors that I did recognize. I'm going to say them, but I might say their names wrong, so I apologize. I recognized Abraham Ben-Ruby. I know him as one of the bad guys from George of the Jungle, the one that starred Brendan Fraser and Leslie Mann. I don't know how to pronounce them. I'm sorry, but and I also recognized him from ER. He was one of the clerks at the desk in the ER. I also recognized Lachlan Munro. I know him from the Hallmark Channel. And I also recognized John C. McGinley. I know him from Scrubs. I think most people know him from Scrubs and Wild Hogs. So Harlow is taking on this job to get people to go east. And of course, while you're traveling across country in wagons, it's going to take longer. And so obviously they need to stop overnight somewhere to sleep and rest. And because it's dark out, it's harder to travel, that they needed to stop. So there was one scene where they're stopped and camped that reminded me a lot of Mel Gibson's Blazing Saddles. If you have seen Blazing Saddles, I think you know exactly what scene I'm talking about. It is the bean scene. However, from what I know, there were no beans involved in this scene, but there were definitely a few guys who were passing gas, and I heard it, but I also saw them with matches, and I wasn't quite putting it together. Like my brain wasn't processing it fast enough. That one of the characters said, "They're lighting their farts on fire." And I busted out laughing. Like, I was laughing already because of, flatulence. But then I laughed even harder when I heard her say that they were lighting their farts on fire. So I was like, I don't remember. I probably paused it because I was laughing so hard and I didn't want to miss anything. But I thought that was absolutely hilarious. So there's also lines in there that ring true to this day, or that we can relate to this day. One of them took me a while to realize that it was a joke because it didn't quite fit for the times. And then there was another one that is absolutely that kids these days, or even us in general, when we're doing road trips or stuff, that we relate to. So, one of the ones is Richard Lewis's character, his wife, would turn around to the kids anytime they would get ready to get the wagon moving so they can continue on their journey. Is she would turn around to the kids and say, "Buckle up." And in my head, I'm thinking, buckle up. Do you buckle up in a wagon? And then I realized that's the joke. I don't think you buckle up in a wagon, as far as I know, watching like Little House on the Prairie, and they didn't have buckles. Basically, it was her way of stay seated and be careful. And in a way, I can relate to that line, because whenever I'm driving and I have passengers, whether they're my age, younger than me, older than me, I make sure that every single person is buckled before I put the car in gear. So I always say, everybody buckled? Or, I ask. And so once I get all the yeses that I'm waiting for, then I can go ahead and hit the road. So in a way, I can relate to that, even though I'm not a mom, but it's relatable. And another one is the kids asking, "Are we there yet?" And I think we can all relate to that on some level, especially on long journeys, whether it be on a plane, a train, a car. Another John Candy movie, Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. I believe that was John Candy. If I'm wrong, then I apologize. But again, relatable whenever we're going on trips and we're tired of sitting or whatever, and we're like, are we there yet? So, it probably was true back then. I don't know. I can't tell you. But definitely relatable. So I do have notes, but my notes don't quite help me a whole lot, based on the movie in general. It's just like little like comments here and there, and sometimes I don't even know what my notes mean. But this movie definitely has an interesting concept, because normally on a Western, you're either taking place in one or two small towns, or they're traveling west. Like, people, everybody's heading west. But this one is backwards. They're traveling east. And so it's interesting to see how, if they come across other people who are traveling somewhere and they're asking them where they're going, I said, "Oh, we're going east," and they think they're, "Wait, what? What did you just say?" So it's interesting to see their reactions to that and to see what happens. So I was definitely intrigued to see how their travels were going. How are they going to overcome any obstacles that come their way, like a fork in the road or bad weather? And are they going to make it to their destination? Like, who else could they possibly come across in their journey? I believe, if I remember correctly, there was at least one shootout and at least one fist fight. No, I think there was more than one fist fight because I just remembered that there was a scene toward the beginning of the movie where guys were throwing each other around, they were punching each other, some were thrown out the window. But all of their hats stayed on. And I found that odd. Because I was like, wait, what? That's not realistic. But after a while, I was like, well, maybe that's the joke. They're fighting, they're throwing each other around the room, but all their hats are staying on. I found that interesting. I don't know why, but it did take me by surprise because I was expecting most of their hats to fall off, especially when they were thrown out the window or they were rolling off the roof of something. Yeah. There were a couple of characters or maybe actors that didn't quite seem to fit. I don't know if it was the way that the character was written or how the actor was directed to play that character, or maybe it was an actor's choice. I don't know. It seemed odd for the physical, like the appearance of how that character was dressed, like how they carried themselves. It didn't seem to fit. So it was a little off. I don't know if that's how it was supposed to be. Or maybe it was just of how the casting. Maybe it would have been better had someone else been cast in that part. But who's to say? I don't know. I haven't seen the script. I don't know. And there was one other actress that I recognized, and I got it by her voice. It didn't quite get her by her appearance because something was different. I don't know if it was her hair or something, but there was something different about her. But I definitely, it was her voice that got my attention. I was like, that sounds like Audrey. And I didn't get it confirmed until the end when I saw the credits and saw her name, Ellen Green. Ellen Green played Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors. She was in the 1986 movie of Little Shop of Horrors that also starred Rick Moranis, and it also happened to have appearances by Steve Martin and John Candy. Little fun fact, when I was in high school, I actually was in the musical Little Shop of Horrors. Horrors. I did. I played a part in that. And I had a blast participating in that musical, in that production. So overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I would definitely watch it again. And I watched this movie on Amazon Prime. And from what I saw, it had a rating of 4.5 stars, which I was surprised. Usually, if there's a movie that I've never seen or heard of before, I usually anticipate them having like low reviews or low ratings, but this one had 4.5 stars. And so I was like, wow, okay. But I would agree with that. I wouldn't give it 5 stars just because of some of the whether it was the acting choices or like the actors maybe didn't quite fit the role, or maybe it was the character. It just seemed odd. But I would give this a 4 out of 5 stars. And if you have Amazon Prime and you have access to watch videos, give this a shot. Hey, I mean, I don't usually watch westerns, but I really enjoyed this. And it was also a comedy, and I enjoy comedy movies. So give this movie a shot. Check it out. Some of you may not like it, and that's okay, because it may not be everybody's cup of tea, and that's perfectly fine. So again, it's Wagons East, starring John Candy and Richard Lewis. So I think that's all I've got for now. Thank you again for sticking with me. The next video is going to be on Darby O'Gill and the Little People. I did watch it on St. Patrick's Day, so that'll be the next video that comes out. So, yeah. Thanks again for watching. Remember to, if you enjoyed this video, remember to click like and subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And leave any comments down below, any suggestions for movies. Yeah. And I will write them all down, and I will get to them. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.